Hi, I'm here at the Hub Cafe in beautiful downtown Pharr, Texas, where William S. Burroughs lived in the late 1940s. You all have read Junkie, and you remember he talks about the restaurants in the valley and how they would advertise that their food was just good food. And he really mocked the quality of the food here. And of course, what he really did was go over to Mexico and eat, where the food was, in fact, much better. But one story I heard about this particular restaurant, the Hub, was that Burroughs' friend Kells Elvins, Burroughs' friend Kells Elvins, this would stay open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why later, but he was in there one night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, drunk, and like people do after they go out drinking, they go out and eat. And so they came here to the Hub, and Kells was drunk, and there was a red-headed, cross-eyed waitress named Nevada, spelled like the state Nevada. But if you called her Nevada, she'd get real mad and say her name was not Nevada, it was Nevada. Anyway, Kells was in there one night with a friend, a guy named John Snyder from McAllen. He told me this story. And Kells was all over the place. And she said, if that drunk, queer son of a bitch doesn't get out of here, I'm going to break a chair over his head. And I asked John, so Kells was queer? And I said, I've never heard this. Burroughs was his best friend. Burroughs never said he was gay. And John said, oh yeah, that son of a bitch is queer as a $3 bill. And I didn't understand why, and I guess it was because Kells dressed real preppy. In the valley, if he dressed preppy, it was unusual. Nobody dressed preppy in the valley. And he was a guy who had been to Harvard and was a very well-dressed cosmopolitan guy. But this place is called the Hub. And Erica, if you could move the camera over there. And then back, thank you. That's the intersection of Cage Road and Business 183, which was known as the Hub. When you came into the valley back in the 1940s, and I suppose well into the 1960s, there was no, real developed Highway 281. It was Cage Road, and then it turned into a highway when you went north that, took you to San Antonio and beyond. And so the entryway to the valley by road back then was this road, Cage Road. And of course the main road that ran through the valley was Business 183. So where those two roads intersected, Cage and 183, that was the hub of the valley, which is why this restaurant is called the Hub. So Burroughs lived near the center of the Hub. He lived off of South Jackson Road, where it intersects with Kelly Road. I met Anna Mae Kelly back in around 1999 or 2000. Her family was one of the founders, obviously, of Pharr. I don't know why it wasn't called Kelly. It ended up being called Pharr. But she drove me around about 20 years ago. Anna Mae, she was 93 years old. She drove me around Pharr and told me stories. And she didn't know Burroughs or anything like that, but one of the stories she told me was we were driving down Cage Road, where there's a lot of old buildings. Some of the original buildings built back in 1910, 1912 are still there. And we drove by this one, and it had an historical marker on it. And I said, "What's that, Anna Mae?" It's a 93-year-old woman, white lady, 93-year-old white lady. I said, "What's that, Anna Mae? What's that building?" And she said, "Oh, that's a funny story." She said, "That's the first building they ever gave an historical designation in this town. But when I was a kid, that building was where men went to smoke cigars and watch pornos. It was a pornographic theater." So the very first building to get a historical designation at Pharr, not for that reason, but for some other reason, I suppose, was originally a pornographic silent porno theater where the men in Pharr went. But Burroughs was all around this area, and he would eat in places like this. And I don't know, maybe it was the food in Pharr that got him to go to Mexico. And what else about Pharr? So if you want to see Burroughs' land, go to Kelly, named after my friend Anna Mae Kelly's family, and South Jackson Road. The closest place to where Burroughs probably had his rundown house is where the Red Robin restaurant is. I've tried to get the people there to create a drink called the Tiger Terry after Burroughs' friend who was killed by a lion in a restaurant in Reynosa called Joe's Place. They haven't really taken me up on that offer. But Burroughs lived in a falling down shack